Hey YouTube, it's Scarecrow Kaiser here. So, today I'm finally going to get around to doing a profile on my Luard deck. So, I've got to playtest it quite a bit, and I'm kind of pretty far from where I thought the deck was going to go initially. I had some ideas that turned out to be true. Some thoughts I had originally have changed. For example, I do not play this card. Call me crazy, but this card is not that good. It's another card I don't play is Swordbreaker. Yeah, I guess I could keep going with some things I didn't end up using, but like these were two things that just didn't plan out. I really thought I was going to play this card, but it turned out I don't really like this card that much in the deck. I found better uses for my Soul Blast, and this card's a terrible draw, so. And then as for Luard, he's just... I've, like, once found a time where I wanted to stride into him, when I had an empty field, and I just wanted to use him to get something on the field so I could retire it. But even that play isn't, like, that, like, optimal, like... It's not that big a deal if you can't use his Luard's on-stride skill every single time, so... this card might get good in the future, but right now I don't really like it. That said, let's get into it. So my starting Vanguard is, I'm playing Root. I went back and forth between, like, Root and Conrad, the Revenger one. I tried like one or two games with the other one who can rest and give two guys +4, and then like David and things, but I really ended up liking this guy and ended up liking Conrad. Conrad was really cool as a free way to put cards in the soul. My problem with Conrad is that often I would go to my first stride and I would have to retire Conrad because he's all I had, and that was kind of like pointless. So I went with this guy, and I kind of like it. Some people don't. I like it. With my build, the counterblast is perfectly fine with me. The extra power helps a little bit to push early game on my first stride, but I like it so far. That said, for my triggers, I've got 4 Undead Angel, 4 Lagan, and 1 Unicorn. These are all vanilla triggers, so it doesn't really matter them specifically, but I'm just running them because, like, these ones just because they're pretty, but I'm running 9 crits, as you can see. I like having lots of crits in the deck. You could play more stands and stuff. The stands have really good effects. But I feel like that takes away from the threat of like Phantom Diablo and stuff like that. So I'd rather go with more crits. I do run 1 stand, however. I run 1 of the mage because you can just tutor him out with Luard and things. And then you can just use him as a double retire, and he goes back to the deck, so he keeps the number of triggers in your deck live. So I'm running just 1 of him because we don't use him a ton, but he's just there for utility. And then I'm playing 2 draws, 2 Howl Owls. I kind of like them, like, you don't get them often because there's just 2 of them, but when you get it, it's kind of nice. And with only 2 of them, you don't draw often, so it's not like a bad shield to draw. Plus the skill to give out 3k can help make your field a little bit beefier, as well as fuel your soul, so you can do some strong plays. That's why we're running them. You can tutor them out, use them for power and soul, and a little bit of extra card advantage. And then we're playing 4 heals. That's it for the zeros. Next, for our grade 3 lineup, we're playing For Luard, this card is really cool. His ritual skill is really cool. Lets you conserve hand for defense and keep putting targets in your deck to tutor out with his skill, which is also really good. It's a +1. This card's really cool. And then our only other grade 3 in the deck is one Blaster Dark Diablo. Blaster Dark Diablo, the reason we're only playing 5 grade 3s is because both these cards, once you've strode like once, you won't ever need a grade 3 for the rest of the game, because he'll let you stride with anything and he'll just ritual to stride. So the grade 3s from that point on are dead. So we're just running 5. And that's the explanation for one reason why we have less of them. They're dead draws, and we can stride with anything, so we don't need as many grade 3s in this deck. For the 2s, I'm playing 3 more Fessa. She's a beat stick who, with a 7k boost, she hits 21 and has an on-hit skill. That doesn't matter too often, but mostly she's just a beat stick. I'm not a huge fan of her. She's cool, but she's not like amazing. So I'm just playing 3. Then I'm playing 3 Makas. She just gives us a +1 and tutors at her grade 1 when she attacks. For counter S1, counter blast management in this deck is pretty good, so don't really mind doing it just to get a +1 and tutor and deck thin. Then I'm playing 3 Fierce Bow. I forgot about this card's existence, even though I own it, until a friend of mine mentioned it, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to try that card. It's worked out kind of cool. It's not always like live, because you need to have like 1 card in the back row, but when it is, it's an 11k that on hit can soul charge and counter charge. Mostly the soul charge is the big part. This deck soul blasts a lot, so having a card that can get you more soul is really cool. I like him so far. I am running 3 to hopefully see him a little bit more often than just running 2, but yeah, he's turned out pretty cool. I like him. And then my last grade 2 is I'm playing 2 Dark Saga Painter, because when we go to our Diablo strides, we can tutor him out because he's a grade 1. So he's just like an interceptor with 9k power, so that with a grade 1 behind him, he hits a 16. And he's more targets in the deck. That's it for our 2s. For our 1s, we got 4 Karma Collector. Now, that may surprise some people. I'm playing this Perfect Guard over the new one. The new one is kind of cool. I'm just not that big a fan of it. I haven't, it's cool to have it, but to get it, you kind of have to mess up with your field a little bit more. You can't combo it with how I'll get the unflip. It's okay, but usually I like to keep my field. And the counter charge really has helped me a lot. That's one thing I like about this, is that in this deck, I can just counter blast to my heart's content between the owl and this card and other things. Like, that's what I just like about this card. I can just go full force, not worry about like restrictions other than like my soul blast. Pretty much, I'm never worried about counter blast in this deck between this and the owl. Next, speaking of the owl, we have 4 owls. He is really good. For one, when he's retired by Luard skill, so when you stride, your heart makes your whatever grade 4 you are a Luard. So if you're retiring it for a Vanguard skill, basically, you get to countercharge, which is pretty cool. But another really important thing about this card is that when you call it to the rear guard from your hand, you can look at the top 7 and look for Luard, add it to your hand, and discard cards as grade up to 3. So even though we're playing only 5 grade 3s, this card helps us make sure we get one. That's a really big important part about this card. Plus, if we can get him on the field early like that, he's a good target to retire for our Luard on stride skill if we don't want to get rid of our starter or it's been killed or whatever. Next, This might also surprise people. I'm playing 4 of the Stride Fodder. Now, you would think that with my explanation for why I'm only playing the 5 grade 3s, why would I play this card, especially at 4? The reason I have it maxed out is 9 times out of 10, probably more so than that, you have to stride normally at least one time before your ritual is active. I've seen people who want to try and build the deck so that you have ritual active right away, and that is very pointless. You can't use Luard's ritual skill the same turn you ride him because it's at the beginning of ride phase. So the turn you ride him, you're going to have to stride normally anyways. So unless you go first, ride Luard, let your opponent stride first, and then have ritual active on your first turn that you can stride after your opponent's already strode, then you could do it. But that's all too much for me, so I'm just playing this card, so it acts as like an additional like stride fodder. Plus it's a grade 1, so it counts toward ritual, and I can ride it. That's why I'm doing it. After I get my first stride off, it's usually dead, but I don't really care about that so much. It's still a grade 1, etc. All these reasons I've already explained. Then I'm playing 2 knees, Knies or whatever this guy's name is. This card's kind of cool. If it gets called from the deck and you're at ritual, it becomes a 9. So teamed up with another grade 1, you hit 16. But you have to be at ritual for that. That's one thing I don't like about him. His other skill is kind of cool. After he boosts, you can counterblast, retire that card, and draw. It'd be really cool if you could do it with the owl and get the unflip then it was like for free. But that doesn't work because the owl has to be retired by Luard. But yes, I'm just playing 2 of them. I like it just like there. Anymore, I wouldn't really like that. Yeah. Next, to Karen or Sharon, however you say this card's name, I don't care. This card counts as 2 retires when you're on a blaster. So when you go into Diablo or other Diablo, I should say, this card counts as 2 retires. That's pretty much why we play it. It's a good card. Don't need more than 2 because you can just tutor it out. And you have the starter or the stand trigger that also does the same thing. And then last is 1 trumpeter. You can only really use this card like once a game, and you can just tutor out, so I don't see why you would need to play more than 1. So that is it for the main deck. For the G Zone, we start with 2 Carnivore Dragon. This card is really cool. Because of the ruling on this thing, its effect resolves as much as possible. Your opponent has to retire 2 cards, or try to retire 2 cards. Like if they only have 1 rear guard, they have to retire that 1 rear guard. And in that case, you still get the effect to power up your front row. So this card lets you sacrifice 1, make your opponent kill 2. So you're getting a +1 off that. And if they don't, you're doing a 1-for-1 and then powering up your front row. This card is really cool, and for like no Soul Blast or Counter Blast, that's another really cool thing about this card. Like often this thing can be like my first stride if I want to conserve my soul for like future plays. So that's one really cool thing about it. I usually don't use 2, but that's not really a problem. But sometimes you like really long range games, like I do want to use 2 of it. So then we have 2 Aura Geysers, another card, that we end up striding a lot for our first stride in this deck. The downside to this card is it's a Soul Blast. If this card didn't Soul Blast, this card would be amazing in this deck. I would probably even play 4 of it, and I would always use it as my first stride probably, unless I really wanted to kill their back row. This card is really good, gets you the GB2. As I said though, the downside is that Soul Blast. In regards to that Soul Blast, we got our next card here. Aura Geyser Doomed. He retires 3 cards. and then you get to look at the top 2, and for every grade 1 you get, you pop that many guys. But the reason we run him is if we do have to ride Blessed or Dark Diablo, we can go into this for our first ride, get to GB2 right away without using a Soul Blast. So that's why he's here. Other than that, he's pretty bad after that point. Then we have 4 Phantom Blaster Diablos. Really, really good. We've all known this card for a while. I don't think I really need to explain why it's good. Then we have 2 Spectral Diablos. This card, you usually don't get to use it more than once a game because of the Soul Blast, but it is really good. It's usually like your second, third stride. If your opponent's not at 3, it's usually better to go into, is at more than 3, it's usually better to go into this guy since he'll just get you more attacks and more trigger checks. Sometimes, like if your Fierce Power or something hits, you can use him more than once. That's why we're playing 2 of it. If you did want to play, what's his face, Luard, this would be a good way to flip up a copy of Luard too. We have 1 Seabreeze, that's pretty self-explanatory. I play 1 Blizza for the Link Joker matchup. Anyone who's watched me for a while knows I like to play this card because of that. The card's pretty strong. And then we got 1 Dismal for to counter VMAX. And last, 2 Plot Makers because they're really big shields. I'll probably want to play 3, I think. For now I'm running 2, but it's working out. That's it for this deck profile. Like, comment, etc. I'd really appreciate hearing opinions. Thank you for watching.